The first time people whisper his name, it feels less like gossip and more like a warning carried on the wind. They speak of him in half-sentences, as if finishing the thought might summon his eyes out of the dark. He is called the Vampire King, ruler of the night beyond the last lantern of the village. They say his castle drinks moonlight and breathes mist, that his shadow passes over windows like a black wing. Mothers use his name to make children come inside at sunset. Men who pretend not to be afraid do not look toward the forest when they talk about him. But Elena listens. She always has. On nights when the wind is quiet and the stars are sharp as pins, Elena stands at the edge of the fields, toes in the cold grass, watching that dark line of trees where his kingdom begins. The village behind her glows a faint orange, warm and safe. Small houses, low roofs, laughter drifting from the inn. In front of her, the forest waits, deep and unreadable, like a living breath held too long. Her cloak is thin. Autumn has started to bite, and the night air settles on her skin like cool fingers. She pulls the fabric closer, but she doesn't step back. Her heart beats a little faster every time she stares into that wall of branches and shadow. Fear is there, yes, but braided into it is something else, something she would never dare speak aloud. Curiosity. If the Vampire King is truly what they say, why has no one seen him for years? Why do the missing sheep sometimes return the next morning, unhurt but strangely calm? Why did the old midwife once mutter, when she thought no one was listening, "A cold hand can still be gentle"? "Don't look so long," her older brother tells her often. "The dark stares back." But he is not here tonight. The village is busy with preparations, and Elena has slipped away to breathe and to think, which are almost the same thing for her. Behind her, bells chime from the little stone church. A second later, she hears the sound that makes her stomach turn cold. The war horns. They are not loud, just 3 drawn-out notes, but they slice the night in a way she has never heard before. Her head snaps toward the village. For a heartbeat, everything seems normal, the lanterns, the voices, but then she sees it. Riders. Black banners approaching on the road from the king's city, where the sun still rules and anything not ordinary is feared. Torches flicker in their hands, making their armor gleam like teeth. Elena's breath catches. She has never seen so many soldiers together. The village is too small for that, too quiet, too unimportant. She runs back, boots thudding softly on the packed dirt, cloak snapping behind her. As she reaches the main square, people are already gathering, drawn from their homes by the horns and the sudden tremor in the air. Children peek from behind mothers' skirts. Men stand with tools still in their hands, axes and hoes that look awkward now beside polished steel. The riders stop, encircling the square. Their horses snort, stamping at the cobblestones. Elena smells sweat, iron, and the faint, sharp scent of fear rolling off her neighbors in waves. A man dismounts from the lead horse. His armor is brighter than the others, his cloak pinned with the royal crest, a golden sun. His face is smooth and hard, like someone carved the kindness out of it and polished what remained. "I am Sir Damas of the King's Guard," he announces, voice carrying easily. "By order of His Majesty, your village is called to service." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Service means taxes, labor, grain, but the harvest has already been thin. Elena sees her mother's hands twist in the edge of her apron. Sir Damas raises a hand. "Silence." The word drops like a stone. "There is a darkness in these lands," he continues. "A creature of the night, an abomination who defies the king's law. The Vampire King who dwells beyond your fields has been allowed to exist for too long." Elena's chest tightens. Around her, people shift uncomfortably, eyes darting toward the forest and then away, as if the very mention of him might stir the trees. "The king has decreed," Damas says, "that it is time to end his rule. We will march at dawn, but we require guidance." His gaze skims the crowd with practiced calculation. A villager who knows the paths, someone who can enter his domain without drawing suspicion. The square goes still. Elena can almost hear each heartbeat around her. She tastes the dry dust of the road in the back of her throat. "Why us?" the village elder asks, voice shaking despite his age's stubborn dignity. "We are farmers, not soldiers. We keep to ourselves. The castle has not troubled us." "Silence." Dama's voice is like a door slammed. "You have lived under his shadow. You know the streams, the secret roads, the ways through the marsh. We need one of your own to move ahead of our forces. To enter his castle, gain his trust if needed, and open the way for us from within." His eyes are cold when they land on Elena. She feels it happen, like an invisible finger touching the center of her chest. Not because she is special, she thinks wildly, but because she is standing too close to the front. Because she is young. Because fate sometimes chooses the ones who were not ready and does not apologize. "You," Dama says, "step forward." For a heartbeat, she cannot move. Her knees feel hollow. Her mother grabs her sleeve, fingers biting in, but Elena knows there is no use. The soldiers watch with the kind of stillness that promises consequences. She forces herself to step into the open. "What is your name?" Damas asks. "Elena," she says, surprised that her voice does not break. "Elena Marin." "You are of age. You walk well," he observes, like he is examining a piece of equipment. "You will serve your king." Her mother gasps. She's only... Damas holds up a gloved hand. Refusal will be counted as treason. The word falls heavy. Treason. Elena feels the weight of every neighbor's life press against her skin at once. If she says no, not just her, but all of them could pay. Her brother, her mother, the little children who chase each other with sticks. Her heart hammers. She thinks of the stories about the vampire king, the ones told in the safety of candlelight. How he drinks blood, how his eyes glow when the moon is full, how he can command wolves with a whisper. She also thinks of the stories nobody repeats loudly. The ones about lost travelers who came back changed, quieter but softer somehow, as if they had seen something terrible and kind at the same time. Sir Damas steps closer, lowering his voice, so only she and a few nearest can hear. "You will have a simple task. Gain his trust. Find his weakness. When our army approaches, you will open a gate, a door, anything. One small act of courage, girl, and you will be the hero who helped destroy a monster." Destroy. The word lands differently in Elena's chest than it should. It thuds against something deep inside her that resists, a quiet, stubborn feeling shaped like a question. How can we be so sure he is only a monster? But people are watching. Her mother's eyes are filled with terror and something like apology. Elena lifts her chin. Her hands are trembling, but she clasps them behind her back so nobody sees. "I will go," she says. A collective breath seems to leave the village at once, like the wind pulled it away. Sir Damas smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "Wise choice," he says. "You leave tonight before the moon is high." "Tonight," Elena blurts, unable to stop herself. "Alone." One of the younger soldiers laughs softly. "Afraid of the dark little guide." Damas's gaze sharpens. "You will not be alone. Our archers will shadow your path from the trees. He must not suspect an army is near. You are our bait and our key." He pauses, then adds, almost as if he is being generous, "If you succeed, your family will be rewarded. Your village will know the king's favor." Elena feels the eyes on her again. Hope, fear, guilt, gratitude, they all tangle inside those stares. She realizes with a sudden cold clarity that whether she believes the vampire king is a monster or not, to them, she must act as if he is. She nods once. The preparations happen in a blur. A small pack is thrown over her shoulder, bread, a flask of water, a knife with a handle too big for her hand. Her mother cups her face with both palms, pressing her forehead to Elena's as if she could meld courage straight through their skin. "I'm so sorry," her mother whispers. "I should never have let you wander so close to that forest all these years. Maybe they would have chosen someone else." "It's not your fault," Elena says, and for a moment her fear burns away in the warmth of that truth. "I'll come back." She says it like a promise. She does not know if it is a lie. As the sun finally sinks and the sky turns from purple to deep blue, Elena stands again at the edge of the fields. The forest waits, darker and deeper than ever, a silhouette with no face. Behind her, the village feels far away, even though she can still hear someone crying softly. A soldier approaches, face shadowed by his helmet. He presses a small metal token into her palm, a stamped sun, the king's emblem. "To remind you who you serve," he says. "Hold it in your hand when you face him if you start to forget." Elena closes her fingers around the cold metal. For a heartbeat, she imagines dropping it right there in the grass. Instead, she slips it into her pocket. Its weight feels wrong, but real. She takes a step toward the forest. The night swells around her. Crickets start their slow song. The air grows cooler, the scent changing from dry earth to damp leaves and something older, like stone that has remembered too many winters. Each step she takes makes the village sounds softer, the shadows taller. When she finally crosses from field into forest, it feels like stepping across a line drawn not just on land, but inside herself. Branches arch overhead, knitting together into a kind of ceiling. Moonlight filters through in thin, silver streams, painting the path with quiet light. Somewhere behind her, she knows, men with bows move carefully, staying just out of sight between the trunks. "You are bait and key." Elena forces herself to breathe slowly. Her eyes adjust to the dim glow. She listens, not for soldiers this time, but for anything else. At first, all she hears are leaves brushing against each other, the distant hoot of an owl, her own heartbeat in her ears. Then, as she walks deeper, she notices something strange. The forest is calm. Not dead or hostile, not whispering threats like the stories say, just watching. The wind moves gently through the branches, carrying the scent of wet moss and a faint trace of wildflowers. Fireflies blink in the distance like fallen stars. An old stone wall, half swallowed by ivy, runs beside the path, marking some forgotten boundary. Elena slides her fingers along the rough stones, grounding herself. "I'm not here for you," she whispers to the trees, feeling foolish and comforted at the same time. "I'm just passing through." Time stretches. 10 steps. 20. A branch snaps somewhere far behind her, one of the archers, maybe. She keeps walking, forcing her feet not to turn back. Somewhere ahead, beyond the next rise, the Vampire King's castle is supposed to appear, black against the sky. She tells herself to focus on the mission, gain his trust, find a way to open a door for the soldiers. Do not think about what happens to him after that. Do not think about eyes that maybe aren't as cruel as the stories say. Do not think about the way her chest tightens when she imagines betraying someone who has done her no personal harm. But the more she pushes those thoughts away, the heavier they become. At last, the trees thin. Elena steps out onto a small ridge, and there it is. The castle rises from the valley like it grew straight out of the rock. Tall, narrow towers reach for the sky, their tips vanishing into low clouds. Black stone walls drink in the moonlight, turning it into a dull silver outline. Vines crawl up its sides like dark veins. Windows burn with a soft, pale light, candles, maybe, or something less ordinary. It should look terrifying. It should look wrong. Instead, it looks lonely. A cold wind brushes her face, carrying with it the scent of rain and something faintly like old books and smoke. For the first time since she left the village, Elena forgets to be afraid. Her chest aches, but with an emotion she cannot quite name. Behind her, a low whistle sounds from the trees, one of the archers signaling that they are in position. It's time. Elena squares her shoulders and begins the descent toward the castle gates, every step measured, every breath too loud in her ears. The path is lined with half-broken statues, their faces worn smooth by time, their stone eyes blank. Somewhere a wolf howls, distant but clear, the sound long and mournful. As she reaches the foot of the hill, the great doors of the castle stand before her, carved with symbols she does not recognize. They are closed, but not barred. A single lantern hangs to one side, flame flickering inside like a small, stubborn heart. Her hand lifts toward the iron ring that serves as a knocker. Her fingers tremble inches away from the cold metal. If you succeed, your village will live in the king's favor. If you succeed, a living being, monster or not, will be destroyed because you open the door. Her throat tightens. She feels the token of the sun in her pocket, hard against her leg. She also feels, unexpectedly, the memory of a story the old midwife once murmured when she thought Elena had fallen asleep by the fireplace. Even those who drink darkness, child, sometimes carry a light they're ashamed to show. Elena closes her eyes for a breath, fighting the heat building behind them. Then a new sound cuts through the night. "Do you always stand so long at other people's doors?" a low voice asks, smooth and quiet. "Or is it only mine that gives you such trouble?" Elena's eyes fly open. The door is still closed. The voice has come from directly behind her. For a heartbeat, Elena cannot move. The words hang in the air behind her like a cold mist, sinking slowly into her skin. Her hand is still lifted toward the iron ring, fingers stretched, caught between knocking and fleeing. She turns. He is standing a few paces away, as if the shadows simply decided to fold themselves into the shape of a man. The stories had not prepared her for this. The vampire king is taller than she imagined, but not monstrously so, just enough that she has to tilt her head to meet his gaze. His hair is dark, falling loosely to his shoulders, black as the sky between stars. His clothes are simple but finely made, dark fabric that drinks the light, a long coat that moves slightly with the breeze. No crown, no armor, no dripping fangs. His eyes are what steal her breath. They are not glowing red. They are a deep, strange shade, gray or silver, she cannot tell, refusing to settle into one color. In the pale moonlight, they look old and tired in a way that has nothing to do with age lines. The kind of tired a soul carries, not a body. He studies her with a calm that makes her heart pound even louder. She is suddenly very aware of everything about herself: the dirt on her boots, the shaking in her fingers, the thinness of her cloak. She feels like a child in front of him, and yet not quite. His gaze is not dismissive or cruel. It is measuring, observant, almost curious. Her throat tightens. The word sticks on the way out. "I didn't hear you come out." "Few do," he says softly. There is no boasting in it. It sounds almost like a confession he has grown used to making. "The forest doesn't like to announce me. We have an understanding." Elena's mouth is dry. "You're him." A corner of his mouth lifts, not quite a smile. "I hope so. It would be inconvenient to learn that I have spent all these centuries ruling the wrong castle." There is humor there, dry and gentle, and it disarms her more than any threat could have. For a moment, she forgets that archers are hidden in the trees, that an army waits for her to complete her role as bait and key. "You're not what I expected," she blurts. "Nor are you," he replies. She realizes, with a sudden flush, what he must see. Not a mysterious envoy from some distant court, not a seasoned warrior or sorceress. Just a village girl with a too large knife, a worn cloak, and fear that refuses to stay hidden in her eyes. His gaze travels briefly to the path she came from, lingering on the darkness between the trees. Elena's chest tightens. Can he sense the soldiers there? Can he hear their restless shifting, the faint brush of cloth on bark? If he can, he gives no sign. When his attention returns to her, it has sharpened. "You are alone," he says quietly, "yet your heart is beating as if you know you are not." Elena almost chokes. She cannot know if it's just a poetic observation or something more. Can he hear her heart that clearly? Can he feel the presence of others? She does not answer, afraid that any word will betray too much. The vampire king steps closer, and though the movement is slow and deliberate, she fights the urge to back away. He stops before he enters the circle of her personal space, as if careful not to crowd her. "Why have you come to my door?" he asks. The question is simple. The answer is not. This is the moment Sir Damas spoke of. Gain his trust, find his weakness, open the way. She should say the words they rehearsed quickly, without hesitation. She should lie easily for her village, for her family. Instead, she stands in front of this ancient creature, this supposed monster whose eyes look so ruinously human, and feels every lie catch like a stone in her throat. She swallows, trying to force her voice to steady. "I seek protection." He studies her face for a quiet moment. "From what?" "From the king's men," she answers, and at least that part is true. They came to our village. They say you are a monster. They plan to destroy you at dawn." The words echo between them, heavier than she expects. She hears herself and realizes what she has done. She has broken the first rule Sir Damas implied without saying, "Do not warn the enemy." Her heart stops, then slams harder. The vampire king doesn't flinch. His expression does not twist in anger or fear. It only grows sadder. A quiet, familiar sadness, like a man hearing the same old song of hatred on a new instrument. "Do they?" he murmurs. "Again." "Again," Elena repeats before she can stop herself. He looks past her, up toward the hidden sky, as if he can see through stone and cloud. "Your king never did like what he could not command. I suppose it was only a matter of time before he remembered I exist." Elena stares at him, stunned. "You speak of him like you know him." "Know him?" The vampire king lets out a breath that might be a laugh, except there's nothing light in it. "I knew the first man to wear that crown, girl. Your current king, I only know in the way one knows a distant storm, by the damage it leaves behind." He falls quiet, letting the thought hang there. Elena's mind races. Centuries. This being in front of her has seen dozens of lifetimes, wars no one remembers, villages long turned to dust. The idea is too large. Her thoughts slide off it like water off stone. She tightens her hand around the edge of her cloak, grounding herself in the present, in the simple fact that there are archers in the trees and a mother waiting in a village, and a token of the sun in her pocket that suddenly feels like a hot coal. "I had nowhere else to go," she says, pushing the lie forward with the truth braided through it. "They chose me to lure you, to open your gates from the inside. If I refused, they said my village would suffer, my family." His eyes flicker, and for the first time, something like heat flashes through them. Not anger at her, she is sure of that, but a sharp, controlled fury that makes the air feel thinner. "They sent a child to do their cruelty," he says quietly. "How noble." "I'm not a child," Elena replies, too quickly, the words pulled out by pride and fear. Her voice shakes, but she tries to steady it. "I knew what I agreed to. I knew what it might mean." She expects him to mock her, to call her foolish or naive. He does not. Instead, he looks at her for a long moment, and there is something like respect in his gaze, small, unexpected, but real. "You knew you were being used," he says, "and you came anyway. That is not childish. That is something else." "Desperation." She tries to make the word light, but it comes out brittle. "Courage," he answers. The word lands in her chest like a warm stone dropped into cold water. She has never been called courageous before. Stubborn, yes. Strange, often. Too curious, certainly, but not brave. She doesn't know what to do with the feeling that rises in her at his tone. "They are in the trees behind me," she hears herself confess, her voice dropping to a coarse whisper. "Archers, soldiers, they're waiting for me to gain your trust, to find a way for them to get inside. If I don't help them, they will say I betrayed the king. They will punish my village anyway." The confession rips out of her one piece at a time, each sentence a thread pulled from the lies she was supposed to wrap around herself, around him. Why am I telling him this? The question echoes in her mind, but the answer comes without words. Because his eyes have not once looked at her like she is something to be broken or used. Something close to surprise flickers across his face, quickly smoothed away. He steps back, as if to give her more space, more air. "You understand what you are doing?" he asks softly. "You stand between a frightened village and a frightened king. Both want a monster to blame. They have chosen me, and now they will happily choose you if it keeps their hands clean." Elena swallows, her mouth suddenly dry again. "So what do I do?" she whispers. "If I help them, they destroy you. If I don't, they destroy us." A gust of wind moves between them, cold and sharp, carrying the distant rustle of armor in the trees. Time is ticking. Dawn will come. The king's army will move with or without her. The vampire king turns away from her for the first time, looking up at his tall, shadowed home. The castle rises above them like a question no one has answered in a long time. "When I was still human," he says, almost to himself, "a wise woman once told me, when all the choices taste like death, choose the one that tastes most like truth." The words linger in the silence after, heavy but gentle. Elena studies his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the faint hollows beneath his eyes, the way his shoulders carry an invisible weight he has grown used to. "You were human?" she asks quietly, somehow more shaken by that than by his age. He looks back at her, face unreadable. "Once, long ago, before men decided my name should be spoken only as a warning." A flicker of something like shame, quickly hidden, passes through his gaze. Her heart twists at that. Monsters, she thinks, do not usually look ashamed of what they are. From the trees, closer now, comes the softest of sounds, leather creaking, a low, murmured signal passed from one hidden archer to another. They are growing impatient. They cannot hear his voice, but they can see her standing unhurt before the gates. To them, that can only mean one thing. She is succeeding. The thought turns her stomach. The vampire king steps forward again, losing some of the careful distance he kept before. The air around him feels colder, but not in a way that hurts, more like walking from sun into the quiet shadow of a chapel. "If you walk through these doors," he says, nodding toward the castle, "you cross a line that cannot be easily uncrossed. They will believe you have fallen under my spell. They may decide you are a traitor no matter what you do next." Elena's fingers curl against her palm. "If I don't walk through them, they will kill you at dawn." His lips press into a thin line. "They will try." "And you'll kill them," she says, the picture forming in her mind even though she doesn't want it. "There will be a battle. People will die. My brother, maybe. Our neighbors, your people." "My people," he repeats softly, with an almost invisible flinch. "You think there are others like me inside, a court of monsters in the dark." "Aren't there?" she asks. He holds her gaze for a long, steady moment. Then, to her surprise, he shakes his head. "No," he says simply, "there is only me." Silence falls like snow. Only him, no other vampires, no hidden army, just one ancient being in a castle built for many, walking through halls that must echo with his footsteps and no one else's. The loneliness she felt when she first saw those towers crashes over her again, stronger this time, edged with pain. "But the stories," she starts. "Stories are easier to tell when the monster is large and faceless," he says quietly. "It spreads the guilt more comfortably. One lonely creature in a large, empty home is harder to hate. It looks too much like a person. Her throat tightens. She doesn't know when her fear shifted into something else, but now she looks at him and sees not a nightmare, but a tragedy. "If you let me in," she says slowly, the thought taking shape as she speaks. "And you're alone, then there is no army to help you when they come, no one to fight beside you. And if I do not let you in," he counters softly, "you will die between my walls and theirs. Your king will call it justice. Your village will call it necessary. Your mother will call it the end of her world." His words are gentle, but they cut more deeply for it. A tear she didn't know she was holding back burns at the corner of her eye. She blinks it away, furious with herself. "I don't want to be the one who destroys you," she whispers, "but I don't want my family to suffer either." He watches her in that still, quiet way again, and then something changes in his eyes, a decision, small but firm. "For centuries," he says, "they have called me a monster because it makes it easier to live with what they fear. I cannot change that, Elena Marin." The way he says her name is careful, respectful. "But tonight, I may choose what kind of monster I will be to you." She doesn't understand at first. "What do you mean?" He is silent for a moment. The wind picks up, stirring his coat, carrying the smell of rain closer. Then he speaks, each word deliberate. "I can shut these doors," he says, nodding to the castle, "and vanish into my shadows. I can let your king's soldiers come and break themselves against these walls. You will stand between us, crushed by both, and history will remember only that the sun destroyed the darkness." He pauses. "Or," he continues quietly, "I can let you in. I can offer you my protection, knowing it will make me weaker when your king comes. I can try, for one more night, to be something other than what they have always said I am." Her heart thunders. "Why?" she asks, voice cracking. "Why would you risk yourself for me? You don't even know me." He looks at her, and the answer in his gaze is both simple and unbearably heavy. "Because," he says softly, "you stood at my gate and told me the truth when you owed me only lies." The wind dies down, leaving a deeper stillness in its place. Elena feels the weight of his words settle inside her. Somewhere in the trees, an impatient whisper, the faint scrape of a bow being raised, breaks the night's illusion of privacy. The vampire king lifts his hand slowly toward the great iron ring on the door. An invitation, not a command. "Decide, Elena," he says, voice barely above a whisper now. "Step back and return to them, and I will accept what comes. Step forward and cross this threshold, and your life will no longer belong only to the sun's stories." Her breath trembles in her chest. Behind her, a king who uses fear like a tool, soldiers with arrows ready, a village that might call her traitor for hesitating. In front of her, a lonely castle and a monster with eyes full of tired compassion, offering her safety that might cost him everything. Her feet feel rooted to the stone. For a moment, she thinks of her brother's laugh, her mother's hands, the warmth of the hearth. For another, she thinks of those gray-silver eyes that refused to lie to her, even when it would have been easier. Her fingers brush the sun token in her pocket, then fall away. Elena draws in a slow, shaking breath. And then, with her heart pounding so loudly she is sure the hidden archers can hear it, she lifts her foot and takes a single, irreversible step toward the open door. The vampire king's hand closes around the iron ring. As the ancient doors begin to groan inward, a sharp hiss dances through the air from the trees behind her, the unmistakable sound of a bowstring pulled back, an arrow released, cutting the night in a deadly, whistling line. Elena's eyes widen. The arrow is flying straight toward her back. For an instant, the night stretches thin, like glass about to break. Elena doesn't see the arrow, she feels it. The whisper of air parting behind her, the tiny shift in the wind, the way the hairs on the back of her neck lift in warning. Her body freezes, too slow to turn, too slow to dive. There is no time for anything but a single, sharp thought. So this is how it ends. Then something cold and impossibly fast moves past her. The Vampire King blurs. One moment he is beside the door, hand on the iron ring. The next, he is between her and the trees, long coat snapping like a dark wing. His arm sweeps up with inhuman speed. Metal meets metal with a ringing crack that shivers through the stone. The arrow stops. He holds it clamped between two pale fingers, the shaft trembling from the force of its halted flight. The arrowhead gleams wickedly under the lantern light, close enough to his face that a mortal man would have flinched. He does not. For one heartbeat, everything is silent. Even the crickets seem to forget their song. Elena stares, stunned, her mind scrambling to catch up. If he hadn't moved. She doesn't finish the thought. The Vampire King turns the arrow slowly in his hand, eyes tracing the etched metal of the head. "Silver," he murmurs, almost to himself. "Blessed steel, your king has been busy." His voice is quiet, but it carries easily back into the trees. Somewhere in the darkness, a muttered curse answers him, too low for Elena to understand the words, but not the feeling. He lifts his gaze toward the forest, and when he speaks again, his tone changes, not loud, but clear and cold in a way Elena has not heard from him yet. "You shoot," he calls softly, "at the girl you sent as your pawn. Is this how the sun repays obedience now, with arrows to the spine?" The accusation glides through the air like another arrow. Leaves rustle. A bird startles from its branch and flies off in an explosion of wings. "Elena," a voice hisses from the darkness, familiar, sharp with panic. "Move away from him." Her stomach drops. She knows that voice. Tomas, one of the younger soldiers who had ridden in with Sir Damas, the one who had pressed the sun token into her hand. He sounds terrified. Not of her, she realizes, but of the man who just caught their deadliest weapon like a thrown stick. The Vampire King's eyes flick to her. They are different now, clearer, brighter, not glowing but sharp as winter. "Do you trust them?" he asks quietly. "These men who hide and shoot at your back." Elena opens her mouth. No sound comes out. She doesn't want to believe it. The soldiers might be cruel, yes. They might see her as a tool. But to shoot her, to risk her life without a warning. Maybe the arrow was meant for him, she thinks desperately. Maybe I just stepped at the wrong moment. Maybe. A second arrow hisses from another angle, slicing through her hopeful thought. He doesn't even look this time. His free hand lifts, palm open, and the arrow stops midair with a sharp, buzzing vibration, hanging in front of him as if caught in invisible fingers. It quivers for a moment, then drops to the stones at his feet, harmless. Silence again. The night itself seems to hold its breath. Elena feels her heartbeat in the tips of her fingers, in the hollow of her throat. Her knees threaten to give way, but she locks them, forcing herself to stand. There is no safe place to run, back to the trees with the archers, forward into a castle with a vampire king. "We warned you," another soldier calls, voice shaking despite his attempt at authority. "The creature bewitched you the moment you stepped near. Step away now, girl, and we may forgive your confusion." Her confusion. Elena almost laughs, a brittle sound that doesn't quite escape. The irony cuts deeper than any arrow. The only one who has told her the full truth tonight is the one they call a monster. The Vampire King studies her, then the trees. When he speaks again, his tone softens, meant only for her. "You still have a choice," he says. "Go to them if you wish. I will not stop you." He extends the arrow he first caught, holding it out as if offering it back. "You can return their weapon and pretend this never happened." Her fingers curl around empty air. The image comes too easily. She steps away from him down the path, hands raised. The soldiers rush out, surround her, pull her back into the circle of torchlight and orders. Sir Damas smiles that thin smile and says she did well. They march at dawn, storm the castle, bring it down stone by stone. Her village survives. The king is pleased. And a lonely creature, who once called her brave, dies, knowing the last human who stood at his gate chose fear over truth. Her stomach turns. She doesn't move. A leaf drifts down from the nearest tree, spinning lazily through the air. It lands between her and the vampire king, a tiny, ordinary thing on ancient stone. It feels like the world waiting for her answer. Elena, Tomas calls again, more urgent now. He's playing with your mind. You don't know what he's capable of. She looks at the arrow in the vampire king's hand. Silver, blessed. The kind that's meant to kill him. He holds it delicately, like something fragile, not like a threat. I know exactly what he's capable of, she says softly, more to herself than to Tomas. Her gaze lifts to meet the vampire king's. He just showed me. Something like surprise flickers in his eyes. Not because she defended him, she realizes, but because she named his act for what it was. Protection. She draws a breath that feels too big for her lungs. If they shot at me, she calls toward the trees, forcing her voice to carry, then they are not my side to stand on. There is a sharp intake of breath from the dark. The leaves tremble as bodies shift, startled. Elena, Tomas almost shouts now. Think of your mother, your brother. You walk through those doors and you doom them. The words hit her like thrown stones. She wavers. The vampire king watches her closely, every muscle in his face quiet but alert. He does not argue. He does not try to sway her. He simply waits, which somehow makes the choice heavier. True choices, she realizes, are the ones no one can make for you. My family, she says, voice barely controlled. You threaten them if I come to him. You threaten them if I don't. Which one of you is the monster here? The forest does not answer. Somewhere deeper within it, an owl calls once, its tones soft and mournful. Her mind flares with images. Her mother at the window, scanning the dark. Her brother standing in the doorway with his jaw set, pretending not to be afraid. She feels pulled in two directions at once, as if her heart is attached to invisible ropes, one fastened to home, the other to the strange, quiet light in the vampire king's eyes. He seems to sense the breaking point. Come inside, he says gently. Whatever your choice after, you should not be standing here in their sights. This, at least, I can offer you without asking anything in return. There is something in the way he says it. No demand, no price, that finally pushes her forward. Elena steps closer until she stands within arm's reach of him. The air here is cooler, tinged with the faint scent she noticed before, rain, stone, old books. The cold from his presence brushes her skin, but it doesn't bite. It feels more like the coolness of deep shade after a long walk in the sun. Slowly, deliberately, he turns back to the door. The massive wood panels, half opened, loom above them. He presses his palm to the dark grain. Once you cross this threshold, he says, not looking at her, my protection is yours. No arrow, no blade, not even the sun's may touch you here without passing through me first. The promise is simple, and it is enormous. Elena glances over her shoulder, one last time. Shadows shift among the trees. She catches a brief glint of metal, the pale blur of a face. Tomas, maybe, staring out with wide, helpless eyes. For a heartbeat, she almost breaks, almost runs back to him, to the known danger instead of the unknown kindness. Then she remembers the arrow. Her back tingles where it would have struck. Her feet root to the stone. The choice settles inside her like a stone falling through deep water, landing at the very bottom. She turns away from the forest. I'll go inside, she whispers. The vampire king nods once. There is no triumph in his expression, only a faint, quiet sorrow, as if he knows the weight of what she is giving up far better than she does. He steps through the doorway first, into the dim, waiting light beyond. Elena follows. The air changes the instant she crosses the threshold. It feels thicker, older, full of echoes she can't hear but somehow senses. Candlelight flickers along the walls, bathing the entrance hall in a soft, golden glow that surprises her. She expected blue fire, strange shadows, some visible sign of cursed power. Instead, it looks warm. Dust motes dance slowly in the air. The floor beneath her boots is smooth stone, worn in the center by centuries of footsteps. Most of them, she realizes with a small shiver, belonging to the man who just saved her life. As the doors swing closed behind them with a deep, rolling thud, the sounds of the forest and the soldiers outside vanish, cut off as if someone has clapped thick hands over the world's ears. Elena flinches at the sudden quiet. The vampire king releases the iron ring. He stands with his back to the closed doors for a moment, as if listening to something distant. Then he turns to her, still holding the first arrow. "We have a little time," he says. "They will not rush blind at these walls without their commander's order. Fear makes men cautious and reckless in equal measure." He walks to a nearby table, an old, beautifully carved thing, and lays the arrow down with a care that does not match its deadly purpose. Candlelight plays over his face, softening the angles, deepening the tiredness in his eyes. "You should sit," he says, gesturing toward a long bench against the wall. "Your hands are shaking." "I'm fine," Elena starts to say, but her body betrays her. Her knees choose that moment to waver, and she half collapses onto the bench, cloak pooling around her like spilled ink. Her pulse still drums in her ears. Now that the danger is not immediately in front of her, the past minutes replay in her mind with painful clarity. The flash of silver, the sudden blur of movement, the feel of passing so close to death she could have touched it. "You caught it," she murmurs, staring at his hands. "You caught an arrow made to kill you." "Old habits," he replies, but there is no arrogance in it. If anything, there is a faint, weary apology. "You live long enough, you learn to recognize the sound of things that want to end you." He moves with unhurried grace, crossing the hall to a side table she hadn't noticed before. A simple stone pitcher sits there, along with 2 cups carved from dark wood. He pours clear water into one, the liquid catching the light. "Here," he says, offering it to her. Elena hesitates. The old stories whisper in her head. Don't eat or drink in a monster's home. Don't accept gifts from the dark. Don't let them place anything of theirs inside you. The vampire king seems to read the doubt on her face. He pauses, then, without comment, lifts the cup to his own lips. He takes a small sip, swallows, and only then extends it to her again. "It's from the spring beneath the castle," he says softly, "untouched by anything but stone and time." Heat pricks at the backs of her eyes. The simple, almost shy courtesy of the gesture unravels some tight knot inside her she didn't know she'd been holding. Her hand trembles as she takes the cup. The wood is cool against her palm. She drinks, the water clean and shockingly cold, as if it was just drawn from deep underground. It runs down her throat like a promise she didn't know she needed. "Thank you," she says, voice small. "You are welcome." He leans back slightly, as if giving her space to breathe, to think. In the heavy, golden silence, her eyes wander upward, drawn by the hall itself. The ceiling arches high above, supported by thick, carved beams. Tapestries hang on the walls, their once bright colors faded but still rich, scenes of forests, oceans, starry skies. Not a single one shows war. Not a single one shows blood. It is, she realizes with a start, a house built for peace, not terror. "Why does it look like this?" she blurts, the question escaping before she can soften it. I thought there would be skulls, or chains, or," she stops, embarrassed. "Monsters, decorations," he finishes, a faint, tired amusement touching his lips. Perhaps I should have commissioned some to satisfy expectations. He turns his head, following her gaze up to the tapestries. Something deep and private flickers across his face, a memory, maybe. This castle was not always mine, he says quietly. It belonged to men and women who loved light once. I changed more than enough just by living here. I saw no reason to erase what was gentle. The word gentle, spoken in that soft, rough voice, settles in her chest with surprising weight. You said you were human, she says. Before, was this your home then too? His jaw tightens just for a moment. No, he says. My home then is gone, buried under dust and the feet of men who never knew its name. He doesn't elaborate, and she doesn't push. Pain lies between his syllables like cracks in old stone. I don't understand, she admits instead. If you're what you are, why not leave? Why stay here this close to villages, to kings who hate you? His eyes meet hers, steady and unflinching. Because someone has to. She blinks. Has to what? He looks toward the closed doors, as if he can still see the forest, the fields, the faraway glow of her village through the thick stone. When he speaks, his voice is lower, threaded with something like regret and stubbornness all at once. Your king's hunger does not end with gold and obedience, he says. He reaches for anything different, anything he can call wrong to make the rest feel safe. Witches, wanderers, children born with strange eyes. I have watched it for a long time. His gaze returns to her, and it is suddenly very sharp. Do you know how many times his men have ridden through these lands and not returned? Elena swallows. We heard stories, bandits, wolves, the old forest. They said the dark ate them. A shadow of a smile, bitter and quiet, touches his lips. The dark, yes, convenient thing, darkness. You can blame much on what people are already taught to fear. Are you saying it was you? She asks, confused. The raids, the missing patrols. I am saying, he interrupts gently, that I am not the only danger men face when they march with torches and arrogance into places they do not understand. He lets that sit there, unexplained, like a stone dropped in a still pool. Then, more softly, but this castle, it is a line they will not cross lightly. While I sit here and they tell tales about my hunger, they are less eager to stir certain older things that sleep in the deep places of the world. They prefer one monster they think they know to a truth they cannot control. Elena's skin prickles. Older things, deep places. The world suddenly feels bigger and stranger than it did that morning, when her biggest worry was whether the flower would last the winter. And you stay, she says slowly, so they have something to fear that is worse. He inclines his head, just barely. Somebody has to sit in the middle, better the one who remembers what it felt like to be human. Her throat tightens. For a moment she can't speak. In the silence, a faint, distant sound pulses through the stone under her feet. A low, rhythmic vibration, like many boots moving at once, far away but steady. The army. He hears it too. His gaze drifts toward the inner doors that lead deeper into the castle, then back to her. Dawn is not far, he says. They move faster than I hoped. Guilt stabs through her. It's my fault, she whispers. If I hadn't come. If you hadn't come, he cuts in, they would still be coming. Only then I would have had one fewer person to worry about. He says it so lightly, she almost misses the importance. One fewer person to worry about. As if her safety belongs naturally on his list of concerns now, beside his own survival. Why, she asks, bewildered. Why do you care what happens to me? I walked here planning to help destroy you. He studies her, eyes searching her face slowly, as if looking for something specific. When he speaks, his voice is softer than it has been all night. Because you changed your mind when it cost you something, he says. Most people only change when it costs them nothing at all. The words strike somewhere deep and fragile inside her. She thinks of her village, the men nodding along when Sir Damas spoke, the way no one stepped forward in her place, the way they all sighed with relief when she agreed. She does not blame them, and that, she realizes, is exactly why it hurts. "What happens now?" she asks, her voice small. The Vampire King is quiet for a long moment. "Now," he says at last, "I honor what I promised you. Whatever warrior king brings to my door, you will not be the one to pay for it." Her heart stutters. What if protecting me means worse things for you? He gives her a look that is almost fond, in a worn-out, careful way. "My life stopped being simple centuries ago, Elena. Do not try to take the weight of my choices onto your shoulders. Yours are heavy enough." He takes a step closer. Not looming, not trapping, just close enough that she can see the tiny, nearly invisible scars at his collar just above the edge of his shirt. Marks that look older than anything she has words for. "You wanted protection," he says softly. "Let me give you that much at least. One good thing tonight in the middle of all this ugliness." Emotion swells in her chest, sharp and unfamiliar. Gratitude, yes, but braided with something like grief for him, for herself, for all the stories told wrong. Will you hurt them?" she asks, hating herself for needing to know. "The soldiers, if they attack." His eyes darken, but not with cruelty, with honesty. "If they try to break these walls, I will stop them," he says. "I will not pretend otherwise. I will do all I can to turn them back without killing. But war has a way of making corpses, no matter how carefully you step." Her vision blurs for a moment. She blinks it away. "My brother is with them." "That," he says quietly, "is why I will be very careful." She exhales slowly. It doesn't make anything easier, but it keeps her from falling apart. He straightens, some inner decision settling in his posture. "Come," he says. "There is something you should see before the sun rises. If I am to keep you safe, you should know what it is you've chosen to stand beside." Fear twists in her stomach, but there is curiosity there too, stubborn and bright, the same pull that once drew her to the forest's edge. She pushes herself to her feet. Her legs still feel shaky, but they hold. "Where are we going?" she asks. He turns toward the inner doors, his coat whispering over the stone. "To the heart of the castle," he says. "To the one place even your king's men will hesitate to trespass if they value what's left of their courage." He rests his hand on the iron latch. The metal seems to shiver under his touch, as if recognizing him. "Come, Elena Marin," he repeats, with a quiet gravity that makes her step forward despite herself. "It is time you see why your king fears the dark more than he should, and why he is right to, in ways he does not understand." He pulls the door open. Cold air rushes out from the depths beyond, carrying with it an ancient smell of stone, water, and something else. Something vast and sleeping, like the breath of a buried world. Elena's heart lurches. Whatever waits in the heart of this castle is not just his secret. It might be the reason the world still turns the way it does. She swallows hard, lifts her chin, and steps with him into the shadows, unaware that outside, in the forest, Sir Damas has just raised his hand and given the order for the army to advance toward the Vampire King's walls. They walk into the dark together. The inner door closes behind them with a soft thud, less heavy than the outer gates but somehow more final. The flickering warmth of the entrance hall fades. Ahead, a narrow corridor slopes gently downward, lit only by occasional wall sconces, small, glass-covered lamps whose pale flames burn steady and strange, untouched by drafts. Elena's boots scuff softly against the worn stone. The air is cooler here, with a faint tang of minerals and something older, like the memory of rain that fell 1,000 years ago and never fully left. The Vampire King moves in silence beside her, his steps so light she would barely hear them if she weren't listening. Up close like this, she notices details she missed before, The faint silver thread woven into the cuffs of his shirt, the small tear near the hem of his coat that had been carefully mended by hand. Not the image of careless, arrogant power the stories always painted. He glances at her, eyes catching the low light. "If you wish to turn back," he says quietly, "this is the last place where it will be easy." She swallows. Will it be worse ahead? In some ways, yes, he answers honestly. In others, no, but what lies below is not gentle. It is not cruel either. It simply is. And that can frighten people more than any monster. He doesn't slow, doesn't reach for her arm, doesn't shield her. He gives her the choice and trusts her with it. Elena thinks of the soldiers above, marching under orders they barely questioned. She thinks of her village, of Sir Damas's sharp voice and sharper smile. Then she looks at the man walking beside her, the one who has given her more chances to choose in one night than her king has given his people in years. "I'll keep going," she says. "If I don't understand what you're protecting, I'm just choosing blindly." A faint sound escapes him, almost like approval. "Very well." They keep descending. The corridor widens into a staircase, carved directly into the rock, spiraling down around a hollow center. In that hollow, Elena glimpses faint glimmers of movement, thin streams of water slipping down along the stone, glowing with a faint, natural luminescence. "Is that?" She leans slightly over the carved railing, curiosity pushing past her unease. "Lumen moss," he says. "It feeds on what the sun cannot reach. This castle was built around it, long before my time. The builders believed light belonged in all places, even the deep ones." "Did they know what was down there?" she asks. He is quiet for a few steps. "They knew part of it," he says at last. "Enough to be afraid, not enough to be humble." The spiral ends at a wide stone landing. Before them stands another door, but this one is different than the others. It's not wood or iron. It's carved from the rock itself, fitted so perfectly it looks like a seam in the mountain. In its center is a circular depression, lined with intricate runes that shift and shimmer when she looks at them too long. The vampire king steps forward. "Here," he says softly, "is the line even I do not cross lightly." His hand hovers over the circle, not touching it yet. A faint pulse moves through the stone, like a heartbeat hearing its name. Elena's skin prickles. "What is it?" "The seal," he says. "The edge of an old wound the world once almost didn't survive." Her breath catches. "You said you stayed here to keep people away from worse things. Is this one of them?" His eyes meet hers, solemn and unguarded. "This is the worst of them," he says simply. "The place where something that never belonged here sleeps because it has nowhere else to go." Her mind balks at the idea, half wanting to laugh it off as a story, half understanding with painful clarity that nothing about this night has been just a story. "How did it get here?" she asks, voice low. "Men," he says, a tired edge in his voice. "Men who wanted power that was not meant for mortal hands. They opened a door they did not understand. I helped close it." "You," she searches his face. "You closed it, how?" He lets out a small, humorless breath. "By ceasing to be human." The silence that follows is heavy, but not empty. It's the silence of something unsaid that he finally, quietly chooses to share. "I was a knight once," he says. "Long ago, not of your king's line, of a kingdom that no longer exists. We found a tear in the sky beneath the earth, a place where color bled wrong and voices spoke that did not know kindness or hunger, only wanting. It began to grow. We panicked. We called on anything that would answer." His gaze drifts to the seal. The faint pulsing in the stone seems to match the cadence of his voice. "Something did answer," he continues softly. "A power older than your son, older than your kings. It whispered, 'I will help you close this, but a price must be paid. A watcher must remain, someone who can live as long as the threat does to keep the seal from breaking.'" Elena's throat goes dry. And you said yes. I volunteered, he says. There is no pride in the words, no dramatics, just a weary acceptance. It was not bravery. It was the simplest answer. I had no family, no one who would weep. My comrades had children, wives, mothers with too much soft hope in their eyes. I thought, let the one no one needs stay in the dark. Her chest aches at that. Someone would have needed you, she says quietly. They just hadn't met you yet. For the first time, he looks genuinely startled. The emotion passes over his face like a small storm, gone almost as quickly as it appears, but not without leaving its mark. Perhaps, he says eventually, but the choice is made. What I became that day, it is what your people call a vampire. A thing not fully of life, not fully of death, bound to a duty that does not end. He gestures toward the door. This is what your king fears without understanding. Not me, but the thing I stand in front of. The thing his thirst for control might unbind if he breaks what holds it. Elena steps closer to the seal, keeping a respectful distance from the runes. The air here hums against her skin, a barely audible vibration that feels like the world humming a single, low note. She listens. Under the stone, beyond the symbols, there is a sense of presence. Not a personality, not a voice. More like an enormous sleeping weight pressed against the fabric of the earth. Heavy, alien, patient. Her fear changes shape. Above, she had feared soldiers, arrows, kings. Here, she senses something that does not care about villages or crowns or names. Something too big to notice them at all unless it woke, and then everything would be equally small to it. You've been holding this alone, she says, barely breathing the words. He nods. I keep watch. I mend the cracks when they appear. I siphon off the excess when the pressure rises. Sometimes it reaches up, trying to taste the world. I stand here and say no. How long? She asks. A faint, tired smile touches his lips. Long enough that I stopped counting when your great-grandparents' grandparents were children. Long enough that I have watched whole forests grow and die above us. Long enough to be a convenient villain for a line of kings who prefer a single name to blame rather than the truth. Anger stirs beneath her fear, a small, fierce flame. They call you a monster for staying, she says, voice shaking. But if you left, if you died, this would. This would not open immediately, he says. But it would thin, it would fray. And one day, not tomorrow, not in 10 years, but someday it would tear. Your rivers would run wrong. Your sky would crack. Things without hearts would walk where fields now grow. Lightning of cold understanding goes through her. Everything about her life, the fields, the seasons, the river where she learned to swim, has been held up unseen by a man alone in a castle the world decided to fear. Your king does not know all of this, he continues. His ancestors knew some. They made a bargain. Let the monster sit in the dark and keep the wound closed, and in return they would not try to conquer these lands. His mouth pulls into a bitter line. Promises erode, crowns change heads. Now your king only sees land he does not own and a story he can twist into glory. Elena hears another faint vibration under her feet, stronger this time. Not from below. From above. Boots, many, many boots. They're closer, she whispers. Yes, he says, they are. A tremor flickers in the air, as if the seal itself can sense the approaching violence. For a second, the runes flare a fraction brighter, then dim. What happens if they attack the castle? Elena asks, dread pooling in her gut. If they break the walls, if they break... She looks at the seal, horror rising. This. He meets her gaze, and for the first time since she met him, she sees clear fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for everything else. Then I fail, he says simply, and failure does not end at my skin. Silence falls between them, heavy and absolute. Elena takes a slow, shaky breath. Every choice she has made tonight presses down on her, leaving the village, warning him, stepping inside, walking down into the heart of his burden. None of it changes the fact that above them, an army is gathering under a sky that has no idea what lies beneath its clouds. "What can we do?" she whispers. "Just the two of us against all of them." His answer is quiet but firm. "We tell the truth louder than their fear," he says, "and we stand where it matters most." She stares at him, searching his face. "You really think words can turn them back?" "I think words, courage, and something to lose can," he says. "You have all three. I lend what I can." The thought terrifies her. She is just a village girl who used to stare at trees and wonder about shadows. Now he speaks to her as if she is important, as if her voice matters. "This seal," she says, thinking fast despite the fear. "Can they break it from above, with fire, with steel?" He shakes his head. "No, it is anchored in deeper laws than their weapons can touch. The only way to break it is from within, from fear, from wanting, from someone trying to pull more power than they should." Relief shivers through her. Then at least that is safe from them. "For now," he agrees. "But if I fall, there will be no one left to hold back the little fractures. No one to mend. The world will not end in one great scream, Elena. It will bleed at the edges until no one remembers what right felt like." He steps closer to the seal and rests his palm lightly against the stone, not touching the runes, just feeling the rock. His eyes slide shut. His posture relaxes slightly, as if part of him is here more fully than anywhere else. "Rest," he murmurs, voice so soft she barely hears it. "You will not be disturbed tonight if I can help it." The seal's faint pulse seems to smooth, its rhythm evening out. The pressure in the air lessens just a little. He opens his eyes again and looks at her. "Come," he says. "We've seen what they must not break. Now we go where they will try to." They retrace their steps up the spiral stair. This time, Elena feels every turn, every stone, as if the weight of what lies beneath presses gently against her back, urging her up, reminding her of exactly what's at stake. Her fear of the soldiers above is still sharp, but it is no longer the biggest thing in her chest. By the time they reach the entrance hall again, the air has changed. It vibrates with distant shouting, the muffled stamp of many feet, the rattle of armor. The outer walls swallow most of the sound, but enough leaks through the stone to paint a picture in her mind. Torches, banners, lines of men staring up at black towers, hands sweaty on their weapons as dawn's first gray hints creep into the sky. The vampire king moves to one of the narrow, arrow-slit windows and looks out. Elena joins him, peering through the thick glass. The sight steals her breath. An army stretches across the fields like a dark stain, rows of soldiers in gleaming armor, shields locked, spears planted. Archers form a line behind them, bows strung, quivers full. At the center, beneath a bright golden sun banner, Sir Damas sits tall in his saddle, armor polished, jaw clenched. Closer to the castle, a small group stands slightly apart, villagers. Her villagers. Elena's heart twists as she picks out familiar faces in the gray morning light. Her mother, thinner than she remembered even from yesterday, clutching her shawl in white-knuckled hands. Her brother, Marco, standing rigid beside her, lips pressed tightly together, eyes locked on the castle. "They brought them," she whispers, horror coiling through her. "They brought my village to watch." "To prove a point," the vampire king murmurs. "Monsters make good theater." As if hearing some unspoken cue, Sir Damas urges his horse forward a few paces. He lifts his hand, and the army quiets. "Elena Marin," he shouts, voice magically amplified by some minor spell, loud enough to carry through stone and glass, clear even to her ears. "By order of the king, you are called to fulfill your duty. Step out now, and your village will be spared the worst of his anger. Stay inside, and you will be treated as an enemy of the crown." Her stomach knots. Beside her, the vampire king's eyes flick briefly to her face, then back to the field. "Is he lying?" she asks, barely daring to hope. Or will they really spare them if I go out? He considers this, and she appreciates that he doesn't rush to a comforting lie. They may spare them from immediate slaughter, he says, but favor from a fearful man is a candle in the wind. He will always remember that your village birthed the girl who chose the monster over him. It will color every order he gives. So either way, they're never really safe, she says quietly. I am sorry, he replies. Below, Sir Damas continues, his tone righteous. People of the valley, his voice rolls over the gathered crowd. You have suffered under the shadow of this beast for too long. Today we end his reign of fear, but we must first free one of your own from his spell. Pray that she remembers her loyalty to the true king. Murmurs rise among the villagers. Elena sees her mother step forward, eyes shining with tears. Elena, her mother cries, voice breaking even without magic to carry it. Please, come out. We will find a way to live. Just come back to us. The sound hits Elena harder than any arrow could. Her hand presses against the cold glass, as if she could push through it, run down to her, fold into her arms and pretend the world is simple. Her brother suddenly shouts, voice rough. She's not bewitched. You sent her there, you. A soldier yanks him back, silencing him with a harsh grip on his arm. The vampire king's jaw tightens. Your brother, he says quietly. He is braver than they know. Elena's eyes sting. He always has been, she says. Just not like this, not where anyone sees. Sir Damas raises his hand. Archers, he commands, his tone snapping like a whip. Ready. Bowstrings creak as hundreds of arms draw back in unison. The sound is like a forest straining in a sudden storm. Elena's breath stutters. They'll fire at the castle. They will test our strength, the vampire king says calmly. They will hope to see me bleed. She looks at him, at the stillness in his posture, the steady set of his shoulders. Will you? Perhaps, he says, but not from arrows. Then what hurts you? She presses, almost angrily. If not that, then what? He looks at her, and the answer in his eyes makes her breath catch. Watching good people be used as weapons, he says quietly. That hurts more than steel ever has. Her throat closes. Below, Sir Damas sweeps his gaze up to the dark windows, as if seeking her silhouette. Elena, he calls. Last chance. Walk out now, and I will grant your family protection under the king's personal seal. You know that seal, the vampire king murmurs. Gold wax, pretty ribbon. Promises that last exactly as long as they fit his needs. Elena presses her forehead lightly against the glass, eyes closed. She imagines walking down, out through the gates, her hands raised. Pictured from below, she will look small, fragile, a perfect image. The girl released from the monster's clutches, returning to the embrace of the rightful power. She imagines Sir Damas smiling at her, placing a hand on her head like a priest blessing a child. She imagines him turning to the army, raising his sword and crying out, See, the beast's hold is broken. Now strike. The castle would burn, the seal would weaken. The thing beneath would feel the cracks. Her village might cheer that day. In a few years, perhaps, their fields would start to fail in ways no weather could explain. She doesn't know everything, but she knows enough. You said we tell the truth louder than their fear, she says, voice trembling. How? They won't listen to you. They already decided what you are. They may listen to you, he says, for a moment, because you are theirs, because they still think of you as innocent, and innocence is a language they do not yet know how to ignore. That's worse, she whispers. If I speak and they choose not to listen, then it's not ignorance anymore. It's a choice. And choices, he says gently, are where people become who they truly are. She looks at him, this ancient, tired,